This episode of Going in Raw is sponsored by Liquid IV. The holidays can be a marathon of travel and family gatherings, so be sure to stay hydrated through it all with Liquid IV.
One stick of Liquid IV and 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone and gives you 8 vitamins and nutrients, plus 3 times the electrolytes of leading sports drinks so you can stay hydrated for all the road trips, get-togethers, and parties this holiday season.
So tear, pour, and live more and stay hydrated through the holidays with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code RAW at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code RAW at liquidiv.com. This episode of Going in Raw is also sponsored by Aura Frames. From big events to life's everyday moments, Aura Frames makes it easy to upload unlimited photos directly from your phone so your favorite memories are always within view.
Named the #1 digital photo frame by Wirecutter, Aura Frames can be preloaded and personalized to make a truly unforgettable gift this holiday season.
So save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames by using promo code RAW at checkout. That's AURA frames.com, promo code RAW. This deal is exclusive to listeners, so get yours now in time for the holidays. Terms and conditions apply. Hey, Friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
And welcome back to Going in Raw, the only pro wrestling podcast you need to be listening to. On today's episode, we're talking about the year 2025. It's coming right up, Larson. And as we did a couple weeks ago, we looked at what needs to change in WWE, things we want to see in 2025 from WWE, the other major North American promotion on United States cable television. And now heading to streaming with Max, All Elite Wrestling. It hasn't exactly been as Tony Khan had hoped in that tweet. 2024 would be the next AEW 2021. A lot of people saying it's WWE 2019. I don't think I necessarily agree with that.
Some people are saying WCW 2000. I'll agree with that.
Whoa.
But it hasn't been the year, I think. At least the perception is that AEW isn't hitting the same strides it was in 2021 when it was probably arguably at their peak.
They have lost a lot of viewers as far as the cable ratings are concerned. Again, I mentioned this before. I forget on what episode we did, but I wonder how much of a conversation that's going to end up being with Dynamite moving, to Max for some of its viewers if they want to go watch it on Max instead. Regardless what the conversation is going to be around the viewership, AEW, creatively speaking, I know the one word that you've used to describe it, and I agree with it, is inconsistent. And so we thought we would provide a service today, just like we provided a service to Paul Levesque and company. We're going to help out Tony Khan and let them know, give them the recipe for success in 2025.
You want 1 million viewers a week? Listen to us.
1 million. That's right.
Minimum.
So we're going to go ahead and dive into this with number 10.
10.
Got to make the elite feel important again. It is part of the name, Larson.
All Elite Wrestling. That's right. Elite's in the name of the promotion. And I know they tried with this evil Elite faction with the Young Bucks, Jack Perry, Okada. It seemed like they had a concept of what they wanted to do, but not a plan.
Yeah, seems like it.
Not where the story was going.
Mm-hmm.
And then once the Death Riders story came along, it seemed like this new Elite storyline just brushed to the side. Kenny Omega's coming back.
Yep.
In the new year. He's got his first match back at Wrestle Dynasty, January 5th, day after Wrestle Kingdom. And you'd assume he's going to be back in AEW shortly thereafter. When Kenny comes back, there's got to be a renewed emphasis. And I'm not saying put titles on Kenny and the Young Bucks and Hangman Adam Page. Hangman's already involved in stories, so that's not a concern.
Yeah.
It's getting them involved in stories of consequence, in stories that feel urgent and necessary and vital. And, when the company was at its creative peak is when they were doing the Kenny Hangman Young Bucks stuff.
Yep.
And obviously you don't want to do a carbon copy of that story, but find that energy and try to find stories for the Elite that people want to tune in to see, because that hasn't been the case in a very long time.
Let me ask you something, though.
Sure.
I'm just proffering this for conversation. Are they still relevant? Like, do people want... Is there anything left in the Young Bucks? We saw them, like you said, we saw them in 2024 try with like a Succession-inspired gimmick down to the theme song, where they're the bosses. They got freaked out by the ultra-violence of the Death Riders, who then took over as the people taking over AEW, and they beat feet. I mean, I suppose one way to do it is the Death Riders run roughshod. They expand their ranks, which is something we're going to talk about here in a second. And the Elite has to come together in order to fight the Death Riders. And then you have Team AEW versus, the Death Riders.
If it's a situation where Kenny comes back, Mox stands up to him, and Kenny has to go to the Young Bucks and say, we can't
Sack
run
up.
from this.
Yeah.
This is our company. We created this. Bless you.
Thank you.
We created this. This is our company. This is our legacy in the pro wrestling world. We can't run from this. If we want to save the soul of AEW, then we have to fight the Death Riders. And so you got Kenny, you got the Young Bucks, and maybe then it'll actually feel more like line in the sand.
Yeah.
Sides are being determined, and we're going to get a large scale story being told with this. More on that later. But that would be a way to do it, because then you get the Elite involved in the A story in AEW, and it's something that, especially if they do expand the scope of it, could generate some interest and could trickle down through up and down the card in terms of what happens. And then if they still want Darby to be the one to defeat Mox, especially if the ranks for the Death Riders have expanded, you could have something kind of comparable to what we saw with Cody and the Bloodline, where Darby's going out there, even though he's outnumbered, seemingly. You got Kenny out there. Maybe somehow Hangman gets involved.
Yeah.
You have
Swerve, yeah.
Team AEW. Yeah, Team AEW in there, evening the odds, so it's a one-on-one match for Darby so he can get the win.
Dude, I know you and I have talked about how we get the vibe that this is not going to necessarily be a long-term situation where, we talked today while we're filming this. This is a Thursday we're filming this. How like there's the possibility it'll be Darby at Revolution. I honest to God hope that this story plays out throughout all of 2025, where, you've got any number of people. You got Swerve, you got MJF, you got Hangman in a singles, you got Kenny, the returning Kenny. You get all these guys, and none of them, including like guys like MJF, none of them can get the job done. And Darby does become their Cody. If nothing else, it shows that there is a long-term plan, or at the very least, a long-term concept of a plan that they can weave in and out of, because it is pro wrestling. You can't write a year-long script as much as you like to.
Yeah.
But if the idea is, the Avengers try their damnedest, but they get Infinity Ward, and then Darby has to end up being whatever, their Captain America, their Iron Man, whatever it is, whatever the analogy would be.
Yeah.
I think that would be, because then along the way, what are you getting with Darby? He starts figuring out how to actually win matches, because that's been the thing about him, is that like, hey, this guy's willing to do anything, including punching himself in the mouth, but you need to get somebody's shoulders down for 3 in order to accomplish your goals at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that like that, and what we're talking about right now actually filters into a bunch of the other entries. So let's just go ahead and dive into number 9 here, Larson.
9.
Expand the scope of the Death Rider story.
Yeah, we've been saying this pretty much since day one with the Death Rider stories, that, it's pretty much Mox feuding with whoever is the current contender put in front of him for the title. Claudio, Pac, and Wheeler are not in a feud for the trios titles.
Mm-hmm.
There's other titles in AEW. If the Death Riders want to hold all the power, why aren't they going for any of the other ones?
Right.
Why aren't Pac and Yuta going after the tag titles against Private Party, for example?
Yeah.
Obviously Claudio's in the Continental Classic, so he's vying for the Continental Championship, but there's the International title, the TNT title. Isn't Death Riders trying to recruit some people who seemingly have been listening to what they've been saying and reaching a high level of success, like a Daniel Garcia?
Maybe, let me just offer this up. Is it possible that because they have not received their shipment of logo t-shirts that all wrestling factions should have, they don't have a recruitment tool?
Brother, let's go to Pro Wrestling Tees. They'll print those up in an hour, won't they? You send Wheeler. Claudio sends Wheeler to Pro Wrestling Tees. They get a bunch of their shirts printed up. Bang, it's done. It's not waiting on a shipment. And here's the thing. It feels like one of those situations where if there's enough people in the locker room who sense, hey, the wind's blown in the direction of the Death Riders, that's the future, I'm going to hitch myself to their star. Why aren't people like lining up in front of the Death Riders locker room to be like, hey, I want in? Like these are stories you could tell if you want it to feel like this is a potential sea change in AEW. This is monumental. This is huge. This could change the tides of the company, in terms of the stories being told on TV. But it's not. It's just like, hey, we're going to potentially pitch some huge scope for the story, but it's really just title feuds for Mox.
Yeah.
And the way that Mox has been talking, it feels like it needs to be more. If the Death Riders are a real threat to AEW, it needs to be more. Yeah, the world title is the symbol for, being the top dude and having the power that comes with it. But that alone that isn't going to be the sea change that it seems like they've been alluding to.
Dude, they're overthinking this shit. You can't even get at least I'm looking at AEW shop right now. You can't even get a Death Riders t-shirt there. Like, I get it. They're bad guys. But come on now. Like, people want to wear cool shit. And their logo is a good-looking logo.
It's not bad.
And then if they did this too, like I did with the Friendo Club shirt right here, you figure out what Death Riders is in, like, Japanese characters. Put that on a shirt underneath Death Riders. And it'll sell like hotcakes because it's a really cool-looking language. I don't know why they're not listening to us. They're losing so much money.
I know. And we're only at number 9. We got 8 more ideas after this.
My goodness.
That are just all money. But yeah, I mean, just imagine a story that plays out. You have over All In and All Out, where both cards for both shows are basically Team AEW versus Death Riders, with the future of AEW at stake.
Right.
And if it's Darby that comes through it All Out, I guess it'd be All In. All In's not in London this year. It's in Texas in July. So the schedule's a little different.
Yeah, is that Texas show? Is that like a stadium or is that a
Yeah, it's the Texas Rangers baseball stadium.
It's the big one, right?
It's like 40,000 plus, I would think. Yeah. So if you want to do it there, you want to do the stadium show, cool.
Yeah.
Then make that whole show Death Riders versus Team AEW with the future of the company at stake. Mm-hmm. Because right now, it's all kind of nebulous stuff with nothing really concrete at stake.
But it's not too late. They can kick it up several notches.
They can get there.
Get those T-shirts made. All right, man. Let's, this
whole
whole
list.
list.
The T-shirts. What is that?
I just want them to succeed. I'm tired of looking at these empty seats. This GalaxyCon situation where it looks like a TNA taping. I want to see them succeed. And I will tell you right now, if you release this T-shirt and you have the Death Riders wear the T-shirt, except for Pac, I know he doesn't wear shirts. You could put the Death Rider logo on his bum.
Because he's always in his wrestling gear, yes.
You will see revenue exponentially increase month over month, quarter over quarter. I've got the charts and graphs to prove it.
All right, I'd like to see it.
All right, I don't really know how to work PowerPoint here remotely, so we're going to move on now instead of number 8. This whole list is like a mix of, like, I guess, fantasy booking and, genius story ideas, this whatever you want to call it. And also just sort of like other random shit, like business-wise, like this number 8.
8.
Shorter B-level pay-per-views, man.
Especially if they're going to start moving some part of their pay-per-view model over to Max. I get it. Tony Khan wants to give the best value for his shows, and therefore he thinks if the consumer is plunking down $50 for a pay-per-view, then they're going to get 4 hours of wrestling. I get that. To a certain extent, I appreciate it.
Yeah, sure.
4-hour shows 10 times a year. It's a lot. And I feel like if you want to make kind of the original 4 or 5 AEW pay-per-views feel more special, I'm talking Revolution, Double or Nothing, All In, All Out, and Full Gear, those 5. You keep those at 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And you use those as moments where, huge stories can either, you have the blow-off match, you have huge story beats on those shows, and say you don't do them on TV or B-level shows at all, but the focus is on making those shows as huge as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then the B-level shows, the World's Ends, the Dynasties, keep those or have those be 3-hour shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm not saying you do like what In Your House used to do, where it's like an hour and 45 minutes of wrestling. Keep those at 3 hours.
Yeah.
So then the original 5 pay-per-views seem all the more special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And I know we'll get some pushback from AEW fans saying, oh, you just want them to be WWE. Nah. We want them to be successful. And I think one of the ways is, but yeah, it would be contingent on, the max discount situation. Yeah, I don't disagree with this. I mean, the pay-per-views, sometimes I feel like the length of the pay-per-view and the way they order matches and certain matches get on, and it's like, why wasn't this just like a Dynamite main event? It does a disservice to the stories that are supposed to be the bigger stories. So it
burns out the crowd sometimes.
And it does, yeah.
You get to a main event that's a good match that you'd expect the crowd to be super into, and they're kind of listless because they're exhausted.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
If you include the 0 hours, they've been sitting there for 5.5 hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right, yeah.
Watching wrestling if they got there at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And crowds can get burned out. Mm-hmm. And if you got a hot main event that you want the crowd to be into to elevate it to the next level, because Dave loves his heat.
Yeah, we know that.
He likes the crowd being into the match.
Yep.
Sometimes a shorter show could be a benefit in that regard because the crowd won't be so exhausted at the end.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I won't be so exhausted watching it. Anyways, I know some of these are just like I don't know about self-indulgent, but us being selfish and old.
Self-serving, yes.
Boomer entitlement. We're not boomers, we're Gen X.
No.
I'm this close to being a millennial, damn it. Anyways, before we continue on with this rousing episode of Count Out, we got some sponsors this week for the show. Let's go ahead and talk about them.
Let's do it. This episode of Going In Raw is sponsored by Liquid IV. The holiday season, Steve, it can get crazy. It could be a real whirlwind. You got all the travel, you got the family gatherings, and amidst all that, it's easy to forget to take care of yourself.
Yeah, man, I understand. And that's exactly why I always keep Liquid IV on hand so I can stay hydrated no matter what the holiday seasons bring. 1 stick of Liquid IV and 16 ounces of water hydrates you better than water alone and gives you 8 vitamins and nutrients plus 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink.
Seasons, speaking of seasons, our never-ending basketball season still in full swing because it never ends. And Liquid IV is an essential part of our semi-weekly hoops contest. I honestly don't know if I'll be able to achieve my goal in 2025 of dunking on a regulation 10-foot rim without Liquid IV.
Okay, here's the problem with that. Just real quick before I do the awesome catchphrase here. You're not going to be able to do this. And it had nothing to do with Liquid IV or rehydration. You're old. You're like less than 6 feet tall. Your hops are not particularly impressive. And I don't think any of that is going to get better.
That's all bulletin board material there, brother. You're inspiring me, motivating me. Putting a chip on my shoulder. You're getting dunked on.
Would you like some thumbtacks for your bulletin board? Because I got a lot more where that comes from.
Bring it. Windmill dunk in your face.
Oh, wow. I'd probably give you a standing O on that one.
As you should.
So tear, pour, and live more and stay hydrated through the holidays with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code RAW at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code RAW at liquidiv.com. The ability to dunk on your best friend, not guaranteed by Liquid IV.
I'm going to do it, though. And let's get a word from our sponsor, Aura Frames. You know, Steve, I take a lot of pictures on my phone, and yet those pictures are seemingly just stuck on the camera roll. If I want to look at them, if I want to share them with my family, I got to spend so much darn time scrolling through the pictures, searching for the ones I want to find. Half the time, I can't even find them.
Yeah, no, I understand that. But I got some good news, man.
What?
If you're looking for an easy way to share those pictures, check out Aura Frames. Aura makes it easy to upload unlimited photos directly from your phone so your favorite memories are always within view. As you guys know, my best friend, my little doggy, passed away not long ago. I have a little altar to her over there. You got the urn right there. And of course, you got an Aura frame right there where a new picture of her pops up every 20 minutes because that's what I set it in my phone. I got a ton of pictures of my baby dog on that frame loaded up right now. And if you want to give it as a gift to a loved one, you can personalize and preload an Aura frame. Either fill it with photos of life's huge milestones or just pictures of fun everyday moments for an unforgettable gift. I know I've talked about this, but my unforgettable gift for my mom this year is going to be picture after picture after picture after picture of her son, Steve, not Monica, not my sister. No, she doesn't get in there. It's me, my
Just
face.
you.
I'm going to be
Just your
number
face.
one this year.
All right, good luck. So
Every
save
year,
on the
my mom is like, let's see the tax returns. How much do you guys make? And Monica's always number one. But this year, Aura Frame's is going to skyrocket me to number one, Larson.
All right. Good luck with that, Steve.
Thank you.
So save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver mat frames by using promo code RAW at checkout. That's AURAFrames.com, promo code RAW. This deal is exclusive to listeners, so get yours now in time for the holidays. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, man. Let's go ahead and move on now to number 7.
7.
You got to hire a showrunner. Oh, this is just specifies for Ring of Honor. I'll do one better. Hire a showrunner for AEW.
See,
and
I
Ring of
almost
Honor.
put that, but I kind of feel like if Tony Khan would hire somebody to operate Ring of Honor on the day-to-day basis, opening up bandwidth for himself, and then maybe allowing him to focus more creative energy on AEW TV as opposed to like the 10 other things he's got to do.
Man,
Then
hold
maybe.
on. Okay.
Because listen. Back in 2021, for the most part, not all great. AEW creative wasn't that bad.
I understand what you're saying. That being said, when it comes to Ring of Honor, number one, no showrunner is going to get me to watch. But number 2, just listen. How long do you think it takes him to be showrunner, to write Ring of Honor?
I don't know. I think he just writes matches down to a piece of paper and hands it to somebody. That's
Yeah,
kinda
that
what I
takes
feel
about
like.
10 minutes.
Maybe.
That takes about 10 minutes.
But that mean like one of the reasons I don't really follow Ring of Honor because I don't know what the show's supposed to be. Is it Dark and Elevation just repackaged with the ROH branding? Is it
It's a
developmental?
dumping ground for a bunch of matches that nobody really needs. That's what it is.
Exactly. It's just match with not a whole lot going on apart from what Athena's doing.
Yes.
Yeah, and it needs an identity of its own, and therefore needs someone to oversee it without being distracted by 10 other jobs.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that.
If you want Ring of Honor to succeed as Ring of Honor, it needs to have its own identity other than people that are on Dynamite occasionally.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and it needs an identity.
Here
I
we
need
go.
to know what Ring of Honor is in the greater AEW universe, and I don't know that.
All right, this will be fun because I'm gonna clue you in. This is Fightful's report on episode 93 of Ring of Honor on Honor Club. That's
Sure.
Is that the actual name of the show?
I
Ring
think
of
so.
Honor on Honor Club. That's a bit.
It's
much.
like blah, 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 blog.
It is. All right, let's see how many of these names that you that you know. These all look familiar, but this is what happens. Alex Reynolds versus Katsuyori Shibata.
I know them.
Beef and JD Drake in tag team action. What do they take on 2 canceled wrestlers?
I don't know.
It's like the old WWE Network thing in singles
Yeah.
action. Well, it's not singles action, it's Chris Benoit.
Yeah.
Rachel Ellering versus Trish Adora. Hey, that's probably a really good match.
That's probably a really good match, yeah.
Gates of Agony, remember those guys?
Yeah.
Versus Preston Vance and Griff Garrison.
Wow, Preston Vance is wrestling in Ring of Honor these days, huh?
Well, he sure as shit isn't wrestling on normal AEW because, I mean, dude, I tune into Collision every once in a while.
Yeah.
Like every week, I'll give Collision a shot and I'll keep up with it on social media.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Haven't seen that dude there in a while. Shane Taylor Promotions. Shane Taylor, Sean Dean, and Carly Bravo versus Top Flight. That was probably a good match, too.
That probably is.
Billy Starks versus Lady Frost. Probably a good match.
That's probably good, too.
And then TV time with Chris Jericho.
Ugh.
Yeah. Oh, Grizzled Young Veterans are there.
Yeah, I think they're wrestling the ROH quite a bit.
Oh, dude, listen to this.
What?
This is because this is like, it's talking about the various segments. New Japan Strong Openweight Tag Team Champions, Grizzled Young Veterans, scolded a backstage hand for eating cake, which is disrespectful to the business. Are we running this show? I think they got a showrunner. Their name is Steven Larson.
I guess so. That sounds like a storyline from Steve W.
That is so true.
Someone getting reprimanded backstage for indulging in a piece of cake.
Yeah, dude, that's like literally, that'd be all of our feuds.
That's pretty funny.
I feel you though, man. We don't really know. You know, Ring of Honor just sort of seemingly operates on autopilot, and if you want like, that precious TV deal, so that it's not hidden behind that paywall, or you're going to put it on Max, then you probably want to build some stories.
Exactly.
There that people are. They might have stories now, including dude eating cake, but this is the first I've heard of it. And if you want to build buzz, you gotta do something to build buzz.
Exactly. I mean, it's the same problem that's kind of befallen Dynamite, but maybe, more obvious in that it's match. Well, what's the motivation? What's the stories?
Yeah.
You can motivate a feud, but a feud's not the same as a story.
Because none of these names that I mentioned, they're not like developmental people, except maybe Tag Action. But none of them are like, it's like these people need reps. I mean, it's good that they're getting reps. Everybody needs reps, but
it feels
it's not
more
like it's darker elevation.
It's what it seems like.
Yeah.
And that, hey, someone needs to get some wins. So they can go up in the power rankings. So we'll have them go on a winning streak on darker elevation.
Right. Yeah. All right. Showrunner for Ring of Honor. Let's do it. And then number 6. Consolidate some of their titles. They got so many titles.
They got a lot of titles.
And then here's the thing. They got the same number of titles as WWE, but it's all in one brand.
It's all in one. Yeah. So across 2 shows in 2025, just to be across Dynamite and Collision. No more Rampage. But still, just in the men's division, you have the world title, TNT title, international title, continental title.
Mm-hmm.
Am I missing one?
TNT, Continental, International, Men's. I think that's it.
4.
Yeah, on a single brand in WWE, you got the world title and you got the mid card title.
Yeah.
So that's like adding to the deal.
Yeah, it's doubling it up, especially when you have the international and continental. It seems like there's some crossover there, just thematically.
Right. Yeah. Geographically, what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
At least TNT is like broadband. It's like good.
Yeah, I mean, it's your network titles. I get it.
Yeah.
Earlier this year, where it seemed like there was a possibility where Takeshita could be feuding with both Ospreay and Okada, the idea of him winning both those titles, the international and the continental title, and merging them sounded like a pretty cool idea potentially.
Yeah.
And even if they did something like that, but it seems to also though that it's probably easier for Tony Khan to find creative plans just involving a championship instead of a story that's motivated by something other than a title belt. So maybe for him, as a creative device, titles are necessary because everybody in wrestling wants to go after a title.
Yeah.
It's an easy motivator for a feud.
Yeah, unfortunately.
As opposed to a personal beef.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it also leads to some lazy storytelling, because it's like, how many times can a guy come out and be like, I want that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if there was more feuds of a more personal nature, because those are the ones people get more invested in. I mean, we'll get to this more later, but so often in AEW, it feels like there's matches booked for the sake of having those matches. And the only investment you have in those matches are whether you're a fan of the participants in it. And you want your favorite wrestler to win.
Yeah, I also feel like the trios titles and the tag titles don't need to be 2 separate things. And I've felt that way since they announced the trios titles. It's like, no, man, just have like a really killer tag division. That's all you need. One killer tag division, and you'll be good. Especially given that they've got 6-man and tag titles in Ring of Honor also, which sometimes appear on AEW programming. It's like, okay, well, great. Nothing means anything anymore. And so, yeah, I feel like the tag and the trios titles could also stand to be consolidated as well. So you merge those. Let me ask you this. Should there be, because you got the women's world title, Mariah May is currently the champion, but she kind of feels like at the very least on par and sometimes not as prominently featured as Mercedes Moné, the TBS champion. Now, you would think the TBS title would be considered the mid-card title, but at this point, it's kind of a bigger deal, you could say, than the world title. Would you realign the women's division to more accurately or to reflect the TBS title being more of a stepping stone or workhorse title?
You know, I think the reason why that seems to be the case is because Mercedes is on Dynamite every week and Mariah May is not.
Sure, absolutely.
If it was a situation where Mariah was featured in regular stories, or whoever's is going to be women's champion in the near future, if they're featured on TV with the same regularity and the same creative energy as Mercedes Moné, I don't think there would be a disparity. It'd be like in New Japan where Naito had the Intercontinental title and Okada was champ. It was kind of a 1A, 1B situation. They were roughly on the same level. And that's just not happening. So much of what Mariah has been doing story-wise, I mean, she had this whole feud with Anna Jay that happened predominantly on Collision. And I understand you want to have matches and stories on Collision, and while Rampage is still around on Rampage, so people will have a reason to tune in. Because if it's just match with no stakes behind it, no one's going to watch it. But at the same time, when you have your top champion in your women's division not featured on your Ace show on a regular basis, that's an issue.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I don't honestly know. I like the idea of there being, like Ethan Page on NXT said this week, the North American title, that's beneath me because the idea is the NXT one, that's the face of the company title. And I kind of feel like it should be like that because right now Mariah and Mercedes, in terms of like the perception of them, they do come off as a 1A, 1B, which you can debate over whether or not that's something that you want out of your wrestling company or if you wanted to go the other way. I don't think it's that big of a deal. But yeah, I don't know. While we were talking about titles, I just thought I'd bring it up because I noticed that this week how it's like, oh yeah, you know what? Mercedes is on Dynamite, seemingly like a more protected wrestler maybe than Mariah is, even though Mariah is protected until Tony comes along, and that's happened now. So
yeah,
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they approach those titles going forward, but let's go ahead and dive into number 5. Stick to a plan. In anticipation of this one, I went back and I looked at, and I'm not going to offer this up as evidence, yay or nay on this, because I believe that there's been, and we mentioned the Elite storyline, the big drop in Tony Khan on his head situation, kind of not leading too much else except for that one blood and guts match, and after that I was like nothing.
Well, I mean, he got some publicity wearing the neck brace during the NFL draft.
Right, I'm sorry, I meant like about the bad Elite. We talked about
the story
that
that would actually played on TV. Yes,
right. I'm going back and looking at World's End 2023, where we were last year this time, and what kind of relevance wrestlers that were on the card last year still have today, and whether it's evidence that, hey, you know what, they really should do a better job sticking to a plan or not. So in the main event, of course, we had Samoa Joe versus MJF. MJF still a highly featured guy. That was the Adam Cole thing. We know their rivalry probably would have continued on past this had it not be for the it did because of the devil thing. But that obviously fizzled out because of the injury. Eddie Kingston and Moxley were in the finals for the Continental Classic.
Yeah.
Kingston, of course, has also been injured. So, Mox went on to form the Mox World Order. Christian Cage with the rest of the Patriarchy. I mean, they're still a thing that's relevant. Defeated Edge lost to Edge and then defeated Edge because of the contract. It was the cash in. So I mean, Cage is still a thing and Edge was injured. Gee whiz.
Yeah, a lot of injuries.
A lot of injuries.
Yeah. And Samoa Joe's been out too, shooting new season of Twisted Metal.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So he's off doing other things. Julia Hart versus Abaddon for the TBS championship. Abaddon needs to be featured more.
Yeah.
I don't know where they are.
Yeah, Julia's is coming back from an injury.
She's just coming back from an injury. Get this. We had an 8-man tag match. Sting, Darby, and La Sex Gods, Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara. They're not a thing anymore. They're completely, not a thing anymore. Beat Ricky Starks, Big Bill, and the Callis family team of Konosuke Takeshita and Powerhouse Hobbs. Where's Hobbs been?
He came back for a couple weeks.
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
Okay. Starks is gone. He's on the outs. Big Bill is now with Jericho.
Mm-hmm.
Guevara is part of the Texas Men.
Yeah.
Stop that. And then Sting retired.
Yeah.
Okay. This is the next one. I think was supposed to be Swerve versus Keith Lee.
Yeah.
On the way towards Swerve's ascent. So
Swerve versus Dustin Rhodes. Yeah.
Dustin. Timeless Tony Storm versus Riho. Of course, this is for the women's world title. Tony walked in champion, came out champion. This is during her title run. Still a very relevant player now that she's returned. This next match cracks me up. Miro versus Andrade El Idolo. Loser gets to go to WWE.
Yeah. Wow.
Miro's
out hurt. Andrade's in WWE?
Yeah. Exactly. Blackpool Combat Club, Claudio and Danielson. Mark Briscoe and Daniel Garcia were a team. And they beat Jay Lethal, Brody King, Jay White, and Roosh. An 8-man tag match.
I totally don't remember that.
That was the first match on that card. Also on the pre-show, Hook versus Wheeler Yuta for the FTW match. Killswitch won the 20-man Battle Royal. And then Willow versus Statlander, which could still be a relevant feud today.
Yeah.
I could see them circling back around to that, even though they're both faces. I could see that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What is that card from a year ago tell you about where we're at right now? Does it tell you anything? A lot of injuries, I guess, huh?
Yeah, it tells me that there's been a lot of injuries. There was that thing I think Alvarez said where Tony Khan said that you can't book week to week anymore. Yeah.
And
that's different from having a long-term endpoint for your stories. Those are two different things.
Yeah.
But there's been instances, and most notably probably it seemed like Darby is probably going to win the title much earlier than he will eventually win the title. Even though there were some reports that that wasn't the case. As far as what we were presented on TV, it seemed like there was a huge switch in plans from having Darby challenge Danielson for the title, pivoted over to Mox.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the Bad Elite storyline, where that was just completely dropped once the Mox World Order thing became the A story.
Yeah.
And, whether there's even a plan in place for some of those things or not. I mean, ideally, if you're going to come up with in the case of the Bad Elite, the new Elite, a complete repackaging, new members, title wins, you think at some point, early on, ideally, you'd have an endpoint to, all right, this is where the story is going to reach its culmination, and then the characters involved will move on to something else. And it never seemed to be the case for the Elite storyline. It just seemed like we're going to get together and see what happens. And I know that happens all the time in wrestling. But if their stated goal, as it was, hey, we're AEW, we're going to take over this place, there's got to be a story involved in that happening or not happening. And therefore, an endpoint. Same with this Mox World Order thing.
Why do you think they wouldn't have had... if you really want to put over the Mox World Order as like this dangerous new threat, why didn't they just have them absolutely kill the Young Bucks? Something like, similar to how the Young Bucks did to Tony Khan, a really disturbing scene.
You know what they should have done? After the Young Bucks attacked Tony Khan, Tony Khan's the one that has a conversation with Mox.
Oh.
And it's Tony Khan who instigates the whole Death Rider story. And then it gets out of control.
And it gets out of hand, yeah.
Yeah.
And John and Mox is like, you weren't really in this, were you, Tony? You know? And then he's like, so I'm going to take care of it. Yeah, that'd be good. I'm looking at Survivor Series 2023 as well, just sort of juxtapose it. And it's interesting because the women's War Game match this year had its roots in last year, because you have Bianca, Charlotte, Shotzi. Shotzi was injured. She just came back to NXT. And Becky Lynch defeating Damage Control, Bayley, Asuka, Io, and Kyrie. Of course, Asuka's injured. But you got Bayley and Io in that match. Mm-hmm. That motivated the Mania thing. And Bianca's on the other side of it. And all three of them were in the match this year.
On the same team, yeah.
On the same team, right. And so it's like story led to story, led to story, led to story.
Yeah.
Also had Cody, Seth, Jey Uso, Sami Zayn, and Randy Orton beating the Judgment Day. Mm-hmm. And again, all those players kind of continue to mix it up in various iterations along the way. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I'm not saying one, it's like, look at this and don't look at this, et cetera, et cetera. But it's just interesting to put them side by side, like where we are a year later. Because on this card is Santos Escobar versus Dragon Lee. Dragon Lee wouldn't be sniffing a premium live event these days.
No.
Neither would Santos, for that matter.
Not really, no.
Rhea Ripley versus Zoe Stark. Zoe's in the Intercontinental Champion tournament, so she might come out of the first match that she's got.
Could be. It could be.
And then Gunther versus The Miz for the Intercontinental Championship.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. A lot's happened in the year for Gunther.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's true.
Let's move on to number 4. Build stories, not just matches. I know this will get pushed back from AEW diehards because they just love sitting there watching people do moves. But just how much more emotionally invested would you be in those moves? Somebody does a side Russian leg sweep. Oh, man, I've seen that a million times. But if it means something because there's a story building to that side Russian leg sweep, then
it's all the more impactful. It's the most impactful side Russian leg sweep of all time.
It's the side Russian leg sweep heard around the world.
Yeah. I've used the example of the Chris Statlander Mercedes Moné match that happened recently, where Stat was a heel, and then seemingly overnight Tony Khan decided to turn her face because he probably wanted to see Statlander versus Mercedes Moné, which was a really good match. It was great.
Yeah, it was
wildly
awesome.
Enjoyable.
Yeah.
There is a story to be told with Statlander getting disillusioned with her partnership with Stokely Hathaway. Mm-hmm. That they tried to deal with in a single promo rather than taking the time to tell that story. And it happens far too often in AEW. I feel like Tony Khan, when he's filling out his 11x14 piece of paper for what he wants for the pay-per-view, just writes the matches he wants and finds the most direct path to motivate the match.
Yeah.
Sometimes that'll mean a story. Sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
And so we'll have a lot of really good matches, but they just, personally speaking, lack the impact that they probably would if there was actually like a real interesting story behind the match that motivates the match. And then the match can motivate the next phase of the story.
And remember, a story and a feud are different things.
Yes.
A feud are two wrestlers who are engaging in action to motivate a match. A story involves twists, turns, motivations, ambitions, et cetera, et cetera.
Arcs, character arcs, narrative arcs, yes.
Character development.
There's a journey.
Exactly. Yes. An inciting incident. Anyways, let's move on to number 3.
3.
Let your dominant names dominate. Man, I forget who it was. I could probably go back and look right now, to be honest with you. What? But one of our friendos on Hot Takes this week had brought this up, and it really stuck with me. Because too often in AEW...
Oh, the 50-50 match thing, yeah.
The 50-50 match thing. You've got, here, it's right here, Timor.
Yeah.
And I agree with this so much, and I think it's something that AEW needs to work on a little bit. You have your top players, right? Your swerves. Hangman's kind of different, but Hangman shouldn't be different when it comes to like the lower card guys. Hangman should be dominant to the lower card guys, but when he's in a heated feud with the top 5 guy, then it's okay for him to lose because he just gets so heated about things, and the other top 5 guy should be a really good winning wrestler.
Yeah, and they take advantage of that, yes.
Too often, you got their top 5. Swerve, Okada, Hangman, Jay White, and Ospreay, right? I'm probably leaving out some people, but whatever. You got your top guys, and they get into a match with a Ring of Honor player. And for some reason, they have a hard time with these people. And it's like sometimes it's okay to have a 7-minute match, much like they did actually do with Swerve versus Max Caster, where it's just total annihilation. And I kind of like that MVP, to a degree, lambasted Shelton for just playing around with Kyle Fletcher. The insinuation being, you could have ended this.
Yeah.
What are you doing out there?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like too often, just for the sake of a good match, they ignore the greater story and making their stars look like stars.
Yeah. I've said in the past that so much of AEW is about performance, and part of that is putting on good matches because that's what they're known for. And I understand that motivation, that if you have one of your, as you said, top 5 in the men's division facing off someone that's, lower down the card, but maybe a really good wrestler, all right, let's put on a 15-minute match so, we can have a quality match to fill the time on the show. But if it comes with a disservice to the story, is it really worth it then?
Yeah.
I mentioned this. We did Hot Takes, the conversation between Meltzer and Alvarez on one of the recent Wrestling Observer radios, about their example was Mina, prior to her title match at Winter is Coming, had a really competitive match against Emi Sakura on Collision, I think it was, where Emi apparently got like most of the offense in, and the whole time Mina was selling. And the issue being that Mina had a championship match this Wednesday. She needs to look strong going into that championship match, so we as the audience see her as a viable contender and someone who could win against Mariah May. Mm-hmm. And during the course of that conversation, Meltzer noted that it's up to the talent to put the matches together. Mm. There's producers in AEW, but apparently their role is different than the producers in WWE because they're the ones that put the matches together in WWE and make sure there's seemingly a creative through line from what happens out of the ring in the ring. Mm-hmm. That seemingly isn't the case consistently in AEW. Seemingly it's more up to the talent to find that through line.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And that creates potentially an interesting situation for wrestlers if someone in the top 5, say, goes to their opponent and is like, I know we have 12 minutes, but we need to structure this to fit the story that's being told.
Yeah.
That puts the wrestlers in a tough situation to have those conversations. I know they're all professionals, but everybody in the pro wrestling world, I think it's the nature of the business, is looking to protect their brands and their characters.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And so it would probably benefit the company to have someone in a producer role say, all right, this is the story that needs to be told for this match. And here are the story beats we need to hit. Outside of that, set it up how you want. You have this much time, hit these beats, this is the finish. Mm-hmm. And because then it would actually consistently play into the stories being told outside of the ring as well.
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's go ahead and move on to number 2. We're going to use these last 2 to fantasy book a little bit, just a little bit. And this one is Call Up Athena. Larson, every once in a while in pro wrestling, you see and I remember this goes back to, for example, it's happened with debuts before, but in NXT when Paige got called up, the first thing she did, challenged AJ Lee to an impromptu match for the title, and she won. Mm-hmm. This happens every once in a while. Not very often, but it happens every once in a while. And I can't think of a better situation to use that idea than Athena, who I think has the Billy Starks match, I think, at Final Battle.
That would make sense.
I think. And if she gets the call up, finally, after 2 years of being in Ring of Honor, carrying the brand, she gets the call up, and it's against Mercedes Moné. And she challenges Mercedes to a match on the spot, and she wins. I can't think of a better way to reward Athena and a wonderful, shocking moment. And then you got one of the best wrestlers under contract on cable television where she belongs.
Yeah. So Athena's had that title since Final Battle 2022.
Wow. Yeah.
She's had it more than 2 years.
Yeah.
That was December 10th, 2022. That show happened. So as of Wikipedia here, it says 733 plus days. So I think what Final Battle happens this weekend? Is it this weekend or next weekend?
It is December 20th. So
next weekend.
Yeah, next weekend.
Next Friday. Yeah, I mean, they've been telling a long-term story with Athena and Billy Starks. Makes all the sense for Billy to beat Athena for the title. And then, as you said, I think that's a great idea, having Athena show up, whether it's on Dynamite or a pay-per-view, challenging Mercedes, and then beating her for the TBS title.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because Athena's been doing awesome work in Ring of Honor, and it's a bummer that she hasn't been able to do that level of work on cable television so more people can see it.
Yeah.
Instead of on a show that's paywalled.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's a phenomenal talent, and to see her doing career-defining work and not have it be in the largest stage possible is a little bit of a bummer.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm trying to see. So it's not right now. I don't. Okay, so Wrestle Dynasty International Women's Cup. Oh, okay. So they're both in the Wrestle Dynasty International Women's Cup thing.
Athena and Billy Starks are?
Yes.
All right.
Oh, wait. Qualifier 4-way. Athena. Oh, no. Athena defeated Billy Starks, Layla Hirsch, and Red Velvet. That was on this past week's Honor Club. This is Honor Club 94.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with them. In any event, she needs to get called. She needs to drop that title and get called up.
Or heck, have her get called up with the title.
Nah, we don't need Ring of Honor titles there.
All right. I'll make an exception for Athena because she's great.
You know what, man? You got to put somebody over on your way out. And once she's out of Ring of Honor, I want her out of Ring of Honor so that I can see her every week on television.
I mean, the story they're telling with her and Billy, it just makes all the sense in the world for Billy to beat her for the title.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I haven't watched in forever.
I mean, Billy had a title shot already and just came up short, so.
Didn't they fight? I think they fought last year at Final Battle.
Yeah, it was a while ago, yeah.
Let's see here.
Athena, the main event of the show, I believe.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it did. Yeah. So, I don't know. I'm sure somebody in the comments will clue us into what's going on. In any event, I'm not watching Ring of Honor. I want to see Athena on my cable television, please. Thank you.
Yes, please.
All right, man. Let's go ahead and move on to the last one here. Number one. World champion Hangman Adam Page. If for no other reason, Larson, hold on 1 second, so that the thumbnail to the last things WWE needs to do, which featured CM Punk with the World Championship, and Hangman Adam Page, hopefully they'll be world champions at the same time on different brands.
On the thumbnail, I want you to put Hangman the same side of the frame that you put Punk.
Yeah, same
Look
font.
in the same direction. Title over the same shoulder.
Okay, all right. That's my directive. I got it.
So I understand. Again, this is building to a match and not necessarily story type situation here, where it's clear that that Tony Khan wants to reward Darby Allin with the world title reign. I understand Darby's wildly popular with the AEW audience.
He is.
But from a storyline perspective, the more interesting story from our vantage point is Hangman Adam Page, hell-bent on becoming champion simply to deny that honor to Swerve Strickland, being the one to basically inadvertently save AEW from the threat of the Death Riders.
Yeah.
What a wildly interesting story that could be.
Yeah, that could be awesome.
And the expectation is that Hangman will be part of this four-way match at World's End. He won't win.
Yeah.
And he'll move on to something else. Him and Jay White will probably continue their feud outside the title picture for a while. And Hangman won't get another title opportunity while Mox has. Massive missed opportunity. Massive. Especially if they expand the scope of the Death Rider story and Hangman's like, I want nothing to do with any of this.
Yeah,
I have one directive.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah,
I'm looking out for myself.
Keep
Nobody
Swerve from
else.
the title. That's my one directive, yeah.
It's like kind of less I want to win the title. I just want to keep the title away from Swerve, you know? That's kind of his thing.
Yeah, dude.
And through fate, whatever you want to call it, he's in the position to be the one to beat Mox.
Yeah.
That is just, there's so much good stuff there.
There's a lot.
Do it.
Yeah. Yeah. He's the main character of AEW.
Yep, has been since day one.
And he has been since day one. And if you're going to do anything, his character is so damn entertaining these days. Just unhinged Hangman. It's absolutely amazing. So it's like one of the few reasons to tune in on a weekly basis is what the they had a 20-minute tag match that was DQ'd because Hangman showed up and he operates on nothing but instinct and rage alone. He never uses his head for anything.
Nope.
He shows up to work miserable and with one idea in mind, and that's just listen to his demons inside. And that's
Virtually.
it.
Yep.
And that's it. Because who wouldn't want to do that? Oh, man. Anyways, so yeah, that's it. That's our list for making AEW great again. Go ahead and let us know in the comments below. Go ahead and let us know in the comments below how you would make AEW great again. And hit that subscribe button and the notify bell. What would that spell out? Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you later.
No.
Goodbye.